Hi, everyone. So we're going to be starting our general meeting 4 right now. Sorry, I'm like not in the camera. Like says a little short. So today's meeting will be about the psychology behind interviews, which we'll be getting into later. So thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to start with the announcements of what's going on right now in Sci-Chi with events, things like that. So currently we're switching to our new board for Sci-Chi for next year. So this is our new board, as you can see. The first thing is member highlights. We do a thing on Sci-Chi where we have a a quarterly newsletter, and you can apply to be a member highlight where we'll talk a little bit about your achievements and anything that is happening in your life right now that you would like to be highlighted. So you can fill out this form that we have, and it'll also be sent through our weekly email if you're interested. And next we have our Seven Leaves fundraiser today. So if you're interested in grabbing a boba or just a drink, definitely go support us. And if you do, make sure to to show the flyer on your device so that they can donate 20% of the funds to Sci-Chi. And you will get 2 activity points by sending us a picture of your receipt if you do end up going. And it ends by 11 p.m., so you do have a good amount of the rest of the day. And so next is the Share Circle, which is next Wednesday, which will be run by one of our board members. And it's going to be a discussion about exercise and physical activity and how it affects our mental health and well-being. So it'll be more of like a discussion where you can also express your own opinions, and it'll be more of like a talk. So if you are interested, it will also be available on Zoom or in person. And the Zoom link will be linked into the weekly update as well if you are interested. The mouse. Okay, and one more thing is our mentorship program, which is a program that we have through Sci-Chi where there's grad students or just alumni in general of Sci-Chi who become mentors for undergrads here right now. And we have a co-facilitator position still open, in which the role just includes like planning events for the program and just organizing the program in general. And if you are interested in this opportunity, definitely apply. It'll be open until Monday, June 3rd. So definitely fill out the form if that's something you would like to be a part of. I'll pass it over to Alexa.
Yay. Hi, everyone. My name is Alexa.
My name is Maisha.
And we're the FLIM co-coordinators for next year. And we opened up our FLIM mentor application. So if this seems like something you're interested, please apply. Really anyone in Sci-Chi is eligible as long as you're an official member by the end of winter 2025. And yeah, so the deadline to apply is June 17th at 11:59. And if you guys have questions, you could ask me or Maisha, she's blurry, or you could email the UCR Sci-Chi FLIM email. And that's, yeah.
So when do like the Flimpies themselves like actually do the application?
That'll be by week 2 of next fall.
Like mentees?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna open it up like week 1, but then we'll
Yeah.
close it like week 2 or week 3.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, if you want more updates, please follow our Instagram, UCR Sci-Chi Flimp. Yeah, and I'll just do our psych too. So we have our psych coming up. It's June 2nd. It's our 6th annual undergraduate research conference. And you'll be able to see your peers present their posters or just highlighted presentations. And again, it's Sunday, June 2nd, Hub 2302 South from 12 to 7. Oh, yeah. And we also have our keynote speaker, Dr. Dida. She'll be giving her speech from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And yeah, this is a great opportunity to get more involved in research if you're interested in doing so. Next, we have Our Brains.
Immediately went
Yeah, thank you. Okay, hi everyone. My name's Anna and I'm the president of Our Brains currently. And then we have
Hi, my name is Abby. I'm part of the social media committee for Our Brains.
And
Oh, I'm also part of the social media committee for Our Brains.
yeah, so to get to know Our Brains a little bit, this is our mission statement that we have here, and Our Brains is a inclusive environment to everyone, and it's focused on psychology, but we do accept anyone who's not even a psychology major. If you just have an interest in it or you want to learn more about it here and there, just pop in and take part in some of the activities. We do explore diverse topics in psychology, as well as have a lot of activities that relate to psychology, and sometimes we have panels, guest speakers, stuff like that.
And our Instagram is Our Brains at UCR if you want to see more updates and just our reels of your general meetings.
Okay, so we'll get into our main topics here that we are going to talk about, the psychology of interviews, and then a couple different tips and tricks on what we have to do. Are you gonna want to stay up here?
Sure.
Do this with me? All
Okay,
right, wonderful. Okay. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the handshake. A lot of us know the classic Western handshake is just like this. Right? Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit about how the handshake is used in an interview, why it's used in an interview, and how you can use it to leverage yourself when interviewing. So to start off, what is the origin of the handshake? It actually started back in the Roman era, and it used to be like this, kind of like you're dapping someone up. So that's how the handshake started. And then if you notice, if you go to shake someone's hand in the Roman era, your hand might be on top. And if your hand is on top and you go like this, that means you have the upper hand. And that's where the term having the upper hand comes from the Romans, and also like shaking someone's hand. But now if you just do the Western handshake, if you put a lot of pressure and you go like this, then you have the upper hand in a Western handshake. And the way that translates to interviews, if you do that to the person you're interviewing, they might not get the best vibe from you, because the people that are interviewing you are supposed to be the higher ups. They're already part of the company that you want to apply to, or part of the lab, or part of whatever you're interviewing for. And if you go in and just put all the pressure on their hand, then it's going to come off as you're trying to be superior than them, or like you're trying to dominate them. But you don't want to do that. You want to go in and just have an even pressure and an even eye contact with them, so that you both know that you're on an even playing field, and that you are there to get supported by them and answer their questions, and they know you're there for good reasons and not trying to like overpower them or anything. So the positioning of hands, yes, the up and the down, and also pressure and eye contact. Eye contact is super important, as we all know, in anything. So having that eye contact and even pressure is going to help you a lot when you're performing that handshake. And then you guys send the slides out, so you guys can click the YouTube link there. That's basically everything that we're talking about. It's by Professor Peace at International University, and he is a honorary psychology professor, and he looks into human connection and selling. So you guys can watch that TED Talk. It's covering everything that I'm also saying. Yeah. The next thing is palms. A lot of people, when they're talking, a lot of people don't use their hands, or they put their hands down or whatever. But when you're going into an interview, you want to speak with your hands and put your palms up. Because when you put your palms up, it's more open and it's more inviting. And also the psychology behind it is that there's positive mirroring. So your mirror neurons see the openness and the open hands and invitingness, and they want to mirror that connection with the person that you're interviewing. So you guys will both connect emotionally, and you guys will feel more, you guys will have an increased perception of warmth. So it'll be smoother, and you guys will both feel like you're together, you're in on it together. And then another thing is no pointing. Pointing gives you a very harsh tone. It makes you feel very demanding and defensive, and like you're pointing down on people. So whenever you're interviewing, you definitely don't want to be pointing at the interviewer or doing anything of that, because that actually violates your psychological safety and their psychological safety. And that's basically just the mutual trust psychologically that you have with your employer or with other people. And also, people want to feel independent and have autonomy, just evolutionary psychology says we want to be independent and autonomous and feel like competent people. When we start pointing at people, it feels really defensive and like they don't have independence and like they can do what they want. And then lastly is to have that open body language. You want to open up because psychologically, defensive body language makes it feel very cold and stern, and people don't like to be like blocked off or pushed away, especially in interviews. If you're going into an interview and you're just like, yeah, that's what I do. That's my experience. People are not going to want that because you're not perceived as warm. You're not perceived as a good candidate for the job, maybe because you're just so closed off, and that's not really giving team player energy. So you want to think about those three things, palms up, make sure that you're letting people know that you're open, you're inviting people, and also don't point, and just have open body language. And then, but if you want to use this stuff, vice versa, know when to point when you have to command a room and you have to really give direction. If there's an emergency or something, you can point, tell people what to do and stuff, but also just be aware of using that in certain situations. And then palms down, you do that if you're going more into a managerial role when you need more command over a room. You could do your palms down, or a small tip if you want to get into people psychologically when you're doing a presentation. At the end of the presentation, if you don't want to get asked questions, a small tidbit that obviously sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you go, is there any questions? You shut people down instead of going, is there any questions? So just a little thing that one of my professors taught me. So if you ever want to use that to your advantage, there you go. But yeah, just because people feel like they're being shut down psychologically, so they don't feel as open to asking questions or wanting to open up and go deeper into anything. And then this is some more stuff about interviews and research stuff here on campus. So when you're researching or applying to any labs here on campus, you want to see what kind of mentorship styles they offer and what communities they have built into those labs, just to see if you're a good fit for them. And also you want to make sure that whatever labs you're applying to are going to fit into your schedule, because you don't want to commit to something and never be able to attend or give them false hope or anything like that, because you want to make sure you're being truthful, honest, and being good, just in case maybe it didn't work out with them because of schedule. They could refer you to someone else because you're a really good fit. And lastly is you want to make sure to network. Get out of your comfort zone, talk to professors, talk to your TAs, go onto the research lab on UCR, email those people, really get out there, start talking to people, because that's pretty much the only way you're going to really establish great connections is talking, networking, get out there. So those are big things. Okay. Next is understanding why we do interviews, how we do interviews. So a lot of interviews are to determine if an applicant is a fit for the job, and not only if their experience is good, but also their personality and if they're going to do well within the work culture in the interview. And also the psychology behind it is that having interviews, because you're in person talking to the employer, it's easier to see if you're going to be a fit rather than just like reading a long Google Doc of why you're going to be good for the position. So they can really make sure and engage you. And also it allows the interviewer to ask questions that you might be facing during the job, or different situational things that you will face in the job. And also it's important to know what kind of different interviews there are. There are face-to-face interviews, the ones that we all hear of on site, but there's also interviews that happen when you're put on the job and you have to perform the job and do exactly what's asked for you in the job description. There's also scenario-based ones where you're given a task and you have to complete everything. And there are some other different kinds, so just being aware of whether it's just a sit-down talking, something you're doing in person, or any of that. Just get to know it and get to know why maybe that job is using that specific kind of interview process. And then lastly, everyone has heard of an elevator pitch, I hope, but it's a 30-second intro about who you are and why you want to pursue a specific career. And an elevator pitch is super duper important because it's getting you one foot into the door of whatever person you're talking to, whether they're a super high executive or just someone that knows the company loosely. But elevator pitch is huge. You want to really like refine your elevator pitch. Make sure that your elevator pitch says who you are, why you want the job, and not only why you want the job, but how you're gonna help that company. If you're just telling them, oh, well, look at all this experience I have, I'm gonna do so good for you, the interviewer or the job is gonna be like, well, why? Why are you gonna do good for me? How does that even relate to the job? So making sure that your elevator pitch has some solid experience on why and how you're gonna benefit the employee is super important to have. Not only just saying, oh, look at everything I've done, I'm so good, I'm so cool, you know, making sure that you have things to back all your experience up, and using quantitative numbers, using numbers in your elevator pitch is super important, you know. Numbers sound nice. People like to see hundreds, thousands, or tens, or whatever you do in numbers. Numbers are super huge in elevator pitches. But yeah, that's kind of all the info I have on that information. I think I'll hand it off to someone from Sci-Chi to do preparing for an interview. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Our Brains, for all the information. Super educational. My name is EJ. I'm gonna be next year's historian for Sci-Chi. And I'm gonna go a little bit into what to do to prepare for an interview. There's a few different things that I'll be showing you guys. But of course, use the best method that works for you. There's different ways that you handle anxiety and stress and stuff like that. So whatever works best for you. But I want to just show you guys a few. Okay, there we go. I'll step back. All right, so one of the first things is in an interview, the main aspect is that you are trying to market yourself and you're trying to show why you are the best applicant for a position in comparison to someone else who has maybe equal experience or maybe more experience. You want to show why you are the decision that the interviewee should make. So you want to think about what you're bringing. That could be experience. It could be, I don't know, if you have connections, if you have some special talents that maybe other applicants don't have. You want to think about why you are unique and what sets you apart from all of the other applicants. Before as well, you want to, just control your emotions. Make sure you're not like too nervous, too nervous for the interview. You want to just think of ways that you de-stress. Like for me personally, I love listening to music to kind of help de-stress and just kind of ground myself, get my anxiety back to normal. But you can either go for walks, go to the gym. There's lots of different things that you can do. But another thing to prepare for an interview is to just hold like a mock interview. So you can either ask one of your friends, maybe a family member, to just ask some common questions that an interviewee might ask you. And just think of what your responses would be to those questions. So when you hear it in the actual interview, you'll be more prepared. You'll be like, oh wait, I've done this before. Like, I got it. And then also you want to do some self-reflection. Think about, is this job good for me? To find that out, of course, you can look at the job description, look at some of the responsibilities. Do your research on the company too, see their beliefs, their path, where they're trying to go, see if you fit along with them. So you want to make sure that the job that you are interviewing for is one that is going to fit for you. And then for the next one, if you're feeling nervous or if you're feeling like overwhelmed with the thought of having to be in an interview, just remember it's all anxiety. I know it's very easy to get in our heads and to build things up a lot more than they actually are, but our anxiety is rooted in the worst possible outcomes of an event. So that's something really important to remember. Just remember that what might happen is not what is for sure. So that's just to help with anxiety a little bit. But one of the main things too is to understand your resume. So one of the big aspects of a resume is your past experiences that are fit for the job. So that can include previous employment, volunteering events like at your school, in your community, anything where you are volunteering your time is considered volunteering. And then also extracurriculars or relevant courses. So For example, if you're applying for like a marketing job, if you've taken marketing classes in your school or stuff like that, that's a great thing to include in your resume because it shows that you have experience and you've learned some of the aspects of whatever subject that you are trying to apply for. And like I mentioned earlier, you are trying to advertise yourself and show what makes you unique from all the other applicants. So those are some great things to include on your resume. And then also, hold on, move this over. So another thing as well is understanding the job description. So when you're looking at the responsibilities of the job that are listed on the application, you want to sort of cater your answers to the questions that are going to be asked to those responsibilities. So of course, each job has like their specific jobs that they're going to have you do, specific responsibilities. So when you are in an interview and they're asking you questions about what you can bring, you want to make sure that your answers are catered to those responsibilities. So I can do this that's listed in the job description. I can handle this, and I know I can do it because of these experiences that I've had in the past. So you want to kind of connect everything that is connected in your resume together and use that to answer the questions that are going to be asked of you. And another thing too, you want to understand what a day-to-day would look like if you were to work in that job. So that could be from reading reviews from past employees, or just like asking your friends if they've had like jobs in similar fields. You just want to know what a day-to-day would look like so you can show your interviewer that you can handle all of the responsibilities that are going to come up, and even some of the unexpected ones that aren't listed on the application itself. You just want to show that you can handle the things that are going to be thrown at you and that you are adaptable. But yeah, like I said before as well, you want to research the company, make sure that you know like their affiliations, if they're connected to other organizations, make sure that your beliefs align with all of the other companies as well. But you want to make sure that if you were to be a part of this company, it's something that you're proud of and it's something that you want to be a part of. So that could be like the company goals, their beliefs, affiliations, etc. Just, make sure you do your research before you apply for the job. And then the next one. Okay. So these are just some other preparation tips to have before. Being punctual is a very big sign that the interviewer will see that you are committed to the opportunity and that you are someone that is responsible and can be trusted. So make sure you're showing up early. By the latest, arrive on time, but never, never, never show up late to an interview. That is not a good look for you, and that's not something that the interviewer is going to be proud of and want to add to their team. So always be punctual. Dress to impress. Make sure you're looking good. Make sure your clothes look fine. Business casual is the usual attire for an interview. Unless it's a more like professional job, like something a lot more higher up, then you'd want to look a lot more formal. But you don't want to just wear like, like your everyday clothes, just like a t-shirt and jeans. You want to make sure that you're looking nice. Maybe like a sweater, some nice pants. Make sure your hair is all nice, your nails are clean, everything like that. You want to make sure that you look good because an interviewer is going to judge you on your physical appearance too, not just what you say or what you do. They want to make sure that you fit all of the criteria that they need. Another thing, this is optional, but it's always good to have your physical resume on you to show them. So as you're talking, as you're telling them your experiences or just other things that you've done to help with the interview, they want to be reading it along with it. So they have it down, and also they can keep it. So they'll have your information ready. So even if like maybe you're not a best fit at the time, they have your resume. So if later down the line, they're like, you know what, this person is a good fit for the time, then they'll have your information and they can contact you. So always make sure that you bring a physical resume. Like I mentioned before, do mock interviews. It's such a good thing to be prepared and have the questions, just potential questions that they could ask, to have your answers ready. You don't want to like like write down your question and then memorize it, but you just want to have a general idea of what you would say in that scenario. So when you're asked the question during the interview, you're not like just super lost and you don't know what to say. So yeah, holding mock interviews, even just like ask a friend to just compile a list of questions to get to know you specifically. And then you also want to practice body language. So like what was mentioned before, hand gestures are a big thing. You want to make sure that you're not, it's feeling like you're attacking the interviewer or anything like that. You just want to have a very calm and very just relaxed kind of demeanor to yourself. Something big that can be seen on you is your nerves. So if you look super nervous, if you're like avoiding eye contact, if you're kind of like jittering around, the interviewer will notice that. So make sure that you are relaxed and calm and that you just keep yourself in just a calm kind of state. I know it can be very nervous and very anxiety inducing, but you just have to remember to just keep a calm level. And then also prepare questions. At the end of most interviews, the interviewer will ask you, oh, do you have any questions for me about the job specifically, kind of stuff like that. It's definitely great to ask questions because it shows that you are actually interested in the position and you want to learn more. So something good to do beforehand is to just prepare like a list of questions. Like look at the responsibilities and just come up with some questions like regarded to those. You could ask about maybe if like the salary was unclear, you can ask more about that. Ask what like a day-to-day kind of day would look like if you were to be employed to that position. But yeah, just come up with some questions to ask ahead of time so it shows that you are committed. But yeah, that should be it for mine. So I'll hand it to Pablo now.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Pablo and I'm going to be the DEO, one of the DEOs for the new board. So kind of just to recap what EJ said. So you want to maintain a friendly and professional demeanor. So you want to make sure that when you greet the interviewer that you have a smile, that you give them a handshake. And when you sit down, you want to make sure that you aren't closed off when it comes to your body language. And also just make sure to kind of just when it comes to like during the actual interview, you don't want to use any words that are inappropriate, any slang, anything like that. You want to make sure also that you are kind of maintaining like a normal pace. So you don't want to sound robotic and you don't want to speak too fast because speaking too fast can kind of show to the interviewer that you are nervous, and speaking too slow, you kind of just want to maintain the tempo. And something that you could do, you could bring like a notepad. So you could just take notes on anything that the interviewer asks you. And you could also just use it to kind of just like, if you don't really know how to answer a question, you can just kind of like use it to stall time. But just don't do it for too long. And also, yeah, don't be afraid to ask the interviewer to repeat a question. So of course, like sometimes their question is not clear. So, it's better to ask for clarification than for you to give the wrong answer. And then also you want to show that you are confident in your answers too. You don't want to sound unsure, shaky. And also when it comes to like speaking too fast, like, you just want to have a normal pace when you speak. And so this is the STAR method. So it's one of the kind of it's like a behavioral interview method that interviewers use. So the S stands for situation. So describe the context of your example. So basically you don't want to get too caught up in the details. So you kind of just want to like, so context as in like, oh yeah, this happened at this job, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to be like, oh yeah, this happened this specific day, this time. You just want to kind of, concise. And then the T stands for task. So explain your goal or the task you were responsible for. So kind of just like, make sure that you elaborate it, just get any of the details that you need for that. And then action is like probably the most important one. So describe the actions you took to complete the task or reach your goal. And that kind of goes hand in hand with the result. So when you do action, you kind of just want to make sure that, you kind of speak positively about yourself. You don't want to say anything like you took any action that was kind of, questionable, that the interviewer would kind of find like, they would think like, oh yeah, you're being unreasonable with your action. So like for the result too, you want to show that there was like a positive outcome. So say that you had a problem with a coworker, for example, you want to show that, you kind of, you don't want to say that like you solved the problem by like kind of just like being belligerent towards them and like telling them off. Like you want to show that you were kind of trying to like reason with them, kind of trying to explain your side first, and then kind of just like things like that, being reasonable. And so you want to be able to show and not just tell. So what I mean by that is you don't want your story to kind of like have like no real like you don't want it to just fall flat and for it to not really like for the interviewer to not really see the point of your answer. Like you really want to show like kind of just like um you want to really show like how, so if the interviewer asks you like how are you gonna better, or how do you organize yourself, how do you make sure that you complete all your tasks on time, you want to give like a very specific like you want to explain yourself. You don't want to just say, oh no, like I'll just I like, I'm a very responsible person, that's it. Like you want to show why and not just tell them that you will do that or this. So yeah, you want to be specific too. So you don't want to make like generalization, like when it comes to like the setting, like the context, you don't want to generalize and kind of just say like, oh yeah, this used to happen a lot during my previous job or something like that. You want to make sure that it's just one point in time. And of course, provide clear and concise answers. And try to vary your examples too. So you don't want to use the same like the same setting for all of the questions that the interviewer asks. I mean, of course, that's only if it's possible. If you don't have any other jobs that you could use, then you could use the same one. But of course, if you have if you have had multiple jobs or experiences that are relevant to what the interviewer is asking, then of course, just try to mention as many as you can. And of course, don't try to include any examples that end off negatively when it comes to like the result. You want to make sure that there's like a positive resolution that kind of just shows, how you kind of overcome obstacles and how you collaborate with other people. And yeah. Okay. Okay.
Hi, I'm Kendall, and I'm going to be your next community promoter. So at the end of an interview, the interviewer may ask you, do you have any questions for us? So don't be afraid to ask questions. It actually demonstrates that you're a good communicator and that you're willing to ask questions and get clarification on things that you may still have questions on. So asking questions is actually a good thing, and your interviewer will want you to ask that. Because when you're interviewing for a position, you're entering that company and you're going to be a part of that team. So they want to make sure that if you have a task that's a little too difficult or you may not know how to navigate a situation, that you won't be afraid to go to them and ask for help or guidance or to get clarification on a task. Because ultimately, when you are joining that company, you're entering that team and you're making sure that you can communicate and collaborate well with other people, which is what the organization wants. Also, when they ask if you have any questions, you should have a list of questions prepared in advance. So before you go into the interview, you can go on the organization's website and look into the job description, make sure that you have it clear what it is you're doing. And if something about the position is a little unclear or you want to make sure what the structure of the position is, or just asking about how the company acts and how it organizes itself to learn how they function as a team, don't be afraid to ask. further, if you have questions specifically about your tasks or what you'll be doing or what the organization's like, you can ask that as well, because it demonstrates that you have gone through, you've done research, you know about the organization and what they do, and that you actually want to work with them. Because of course, they'll ask you why you specifically chose to work with them. So having that background information, coming in prepared and knowing a little bit about the company, what you'll be doing, demonstrates that you are dedicated to that company, that you actually want to be there, and that you took the time beforehand to get to know what it is that you'll be doing and how the company is structured. Also, just as the organization that you're interviewing for is trying to make sure that you're a good fit for them and their team, you can take advantage of this to make sure that this is a good fit for you. Because at the end of the day, they're not just interviewing you, you're also interviewing them and making sure that it's a good fit for everyone involved. So after the interview, at the conclusion of the interview, after you've gone through everything and the interviewers have asked you if you had any questions, you got clarification on that, thank you the interviewers for their time and express gratitude for them for them considering you as a candidate, because it demonstrates that you are grateful, that you actually want to be there and you want to be a part of the team. They also want to see that you have a positive and friendly demeanor, that you want to work with them and that you're excited to work with them. Because if they can tell that you're positive and you're good at communicating and collaborating, they'll see that you are a good candidate and that they want you to be a part of their team. Then after the interview is done and you've thanked them, when you go home that night, you can send them an email to further thank them for considering you for the position and for taking the time to speak with you and giving you that time to interview with them. In this email, you may just say, it doesn't have to be long or complicated. It can just be a little thanks. So that they know that you're willing to go beyond the means of just preparing for the interview and showing up, but that you really do want to work for that company and that you're putting in that extra effort to show up and to let them know that you want to be there and that that company is the right one for you.
Okay, so Alexa and I are going to talk a little bit more about research lab interviews specifically.
Yeah, so during the research lab interview, there are a few common questions. The main one is usually there are many labs that you see are what drew you to this lab. So it's important that you have at least some background knowledge on the lab and what it does, which I hope you do if you apply to it. But it's good to just have a few projects in mind that they're doing, and you could tie it down to like that's something that you want to do in the future, and that's why you were drew into that lab. And it's also a good idea to sometimes read articles, which again you probably should have done when you were applying, but if you didn't, you should read them before the interview and just let them know like, hey, I read this paper and it really like stuck to me. I think this is something that I would want to pursue in the future.
Yeah, and another question that they'll usually ask you is what is your career goals? So for this question, it's okay if you don't have like a specific career that you know you want to do, but you want to at least be able to expand on your interest in psychology and what subfields are of interest to you, and hopefully find a way to connect that to that lab's research.
And then this is also just a typical interview question in general. They ask you what are your strengths or weaknesses. Just make sure that you say something that'll make you stand out for your strengths. But in your weaknesses, again, we all have weaknesses, but just tie it back around and say how like your weakness is helping you improve as a person or like you're working on that weakness.
They'll also usually ask you to give an elevator pitch and tell them a little bit about yourself. So during that question, you want to not only introduce yourself as a student and with your interest in psychology, you can also tell them a little bit about your hobbies because some of those skills might apply to this task you have to do in the lab.
And then the last one, these are not all the questions, but typical questions. They also ask you how many hours a week are you able to dedicate to this lab? Usually on the lab website, they have that. So it's important to answer with the minimum amount. For most labs, it's 6 hours. So at least say 6. If you say anything below, that'll probably be a red flag that you're not going to be able to commit as much to the lab. So just do a little more research on the lab and what the website entails.
Yeah, and lastly, just again, make sure you do look into that lab's research before you interview. They're going to expect you to have some background knowledge to show that you genuinely are passionate and interested about what they do.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Abby and I'm the DEO for next year. So just to close this out, just some helpful hints, just kind of a summary of everything we've already gone over. So just remember to be direct in your responses and don't avoid the question or make something up, and try to give examples that directly relate to the question. So don't say something about you that isn't true, because if you do get hired, and even though it might seem like a really good scenario to say, they're gonna see that that's not true and that your actions are not aligning with your words. So just be direct and say what comes off the top of your head. Just be careful in the way that you come across, but don't try to avoid it, and don't be like, oh, I don't really know, because that's just gonna come across as unprepared and they're not gonna want to consider you for being an applicant. And then just remember that you are not expected to know everything. So it's okay to say that you don't know something, but give examples of how you would find out. So it's like, if you don't know something, that's why you say, you don't want to say, I don't know. You're just like, oh, well, I'm not really sure about that, but I'd really love to learn more about it. Can you elaborate a little more? And they might be able to tailor the question a little bit more, so that you can understand it better, and that way you can give a good response. And avoid talking negatively about any past experiences. So if you had an old job and the reason why you're applying for a new one is just because you really, really hated that job, you don't want to talk about that. You just want to say like what it says, talk about fit. You're just like, well, this past job just wasn't a great fit for me, and I'm really looking to maybe engage more and just find better experiences, or even not better experiences, but more experience. So I'm just looking to, an opportunity. And then just like everybody else kind of reiterated, is bring a copy of your resume, a notebook and a pen. Then all of these are optional. And I think it also depends on the interview that you're going to. If you don't think that it applies to that, then you don't need to bring it. But always having a resume is good, and a notebook and a pen, so that it looks like you're there. So like at the end of the interview, when you're asking questions, like them seeing you write down in a notebook what their responses are to your questions is going to come off really good to them. And then just be confident in your abilities and try to convey certainty and confidence in your responses and body language. So just taking everything that everybody's already applied with your palms out and just smiling, and that you know that like you are a good candidate for your job. Even if you maybe don't feel like you're a good candidate for that job, just act like you are. And it's like they will see that confidence, and they will want you to be a part of their team. So, and then these are just some resources that you guys can click on once once the slides are shared with you, just to kind of go into different psychology things to help you better with an interview. And then, is there any questions? All right. All right, well, thank you for an amazing quarter. These are our office hours, our Discord, and our mailing list, if you have not already been added to them. And that is the rest of the general meeting. So now we are going to start the social.